Hi everyone, it's Tom Rose again, and I'm here to make the second in a series of videos about transitioning my gender. And I've been meaning to make this for a while. I am now about 1 month out from when I started hormone replacement therapy. And right around the 2 week mark when I was going to make this, I got sick, and so was not in a state to be doing much of anything. So finally feeling over that and not coughing constantly, so I am back to talk more about this. Thank you to everybody who watched the last video I made. It was pretty overwhelming how many people watched it, and the amount of messages and support that I've gotten from people who I haven't talked to in a long time was actually really nice and unexpected. So thank you for being fabulous people. Just a disclaimer to people who might not know me as well, the further on these videos go, the more I am going to get into some personal topics, especially when I start having mood changes. I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth at those points. And when I start having physical changes, I'm hoping to be pretty vulnerable and open about those. And it may be more detailed than you want about my intimate or physical life. So keep that in mind, but I welcome questions about anything I say, preferably not at work, but in any other context I am happy to talk, probably more than anyone wants to hear, about what's going on. So, all that said, it is New Year's Eve, so Happy New Year to everyone also. And I started hormone replacement therapy November 29th of this year, and is now 1 month and 2 days out from that. And I am still not feeling many changes from the medicine I am taking. So when I first started hormone replacement therapy, I was on 50 milligrams of spironolactone per day. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but there it is. And 2 milligrams of estradiol. So that's a testosterone blocker, and then estradiol is just an estrogen. And I had lab work done that first week to check my kidney function, just to make sure that there were no health effects that I was going to experience, and there have not been, so I've been cleared to keep on going. And did not check my hormone levels that first week. I thought that was part of the lab work that was being done, but it turns out that it was just a kidney function test, and I do not have labs to sort of establish where my baseline was, but I will be having lab work done soon. So I will get a handle on that. At the 2 week mark, I increased my dosage of medicine from 50 milligrams of spironolactone to 100 milligrams per day, and kept the estradiol the same. And that's right around the time that I got sick, so it was a little difficult to sort of sort out what was just general illness and feeling under the weather, and what was actually results of taking medicine. The main thing I have noticed is that my skin is drier, so I'm not producing as much oil as I used to, which is an expected side effect of spironolactone, which is also a diuretic, and so my doctor specified that I should really be making sure I'm drinking a lot of water while I am taking that, and I have not always been the best about hydration in general, so I have increased the level of water I am drinking, but probably not to the space where I should be drinking continuous copious amounts of water. So that is something I'm going to continue to work on. Hopefully swapping more of the coffee I drink out for water will also be helpful in not feeling so dried out. It hasn't been uncomfortable, it's just been noticeable. And then yesterday I had sort of a 1 month follow-up with my care provider So I met with her and had a pretty long discussion about the medicines that I'm on. So since starting to take these medicines, I've been reading more about um, other people's experience on these drugs, and um, there's some discussion in what I was reading online about whether or not starting spironolactone at the beginning of transition inhibits breast development, and um, whether it's better to just start with the estradiol, get your estrogen levels up, and then add in spironolactone later. And again, had a pretty long conversation. Essentially, it boiled down to um, that this is, when it comes to hormones, we're more dealing with the art of medicine rather than the science. So typically when I think about medicine, I think of there is a biological problem that is needing to be fixed. Like cardiovascular medicine in particular, you want your heart doing a very specific thing, and it's sort of more of an engineering problem of how to get it there. But at this point, with hormones, uh, it's a little more flexible. So it really falls to me to be making the decisions about what I want my transition to look like, what I want the timeline to be, um, whether I want to increase my dosage at a particular point or whether I'm comfortable with where I'm at. And um, that's uncomfortable for many reasons. um, and my doctor's role in this really is just to make sure that I am safe and that I am not going to be, um, you know, straining my body in any way. And so I did decide to go ahead, in consultation with her about, or to go ahead and increase my dosage again. So I'm going up to 150 milligrams of spironolactone daily, and 4 milligrams of estradiol. And so in about 2 weeks, I have another appointment scheduled for lab work, which will actually check the levels of hormones in my body this time, to make sure that I understand what my levels are at, and then can make more informed decisions about where I would like to go. Um, it's really weird thinking about what kind of changes you would like in your body. Um, I have always been someone who sort of just makes those decisions by default. I had very long hair in high school for the first time, largely because I just didn't get it cut for a long time, and then eventually it just became a signature thing for me, and I actually started to like it. And uh, um, this very conscious, trying to make decisions about um, what sort of physical changes I would like to see in myself, and then choosing medicines that will make those happen is a pretty new experience. Um, so that's what I have going on. That's sort of my timeline with the medical part of transitioning, and where that's at. We are coming to the end of a very busy period at work, and part of why I timed uh, my hormone replacement therapy to start when it did is because I knew that I would be coming to a much slower period, where it would be easier for me to process some of the um, physical side effects that I'm anticipating, and as well as some of the more emotional changes. And so it remains to be seen how that goes. Um, I don't know how long it's going to take for myself to start feeling, for me to start feeling differently, or feeling differently. But 2020 is going to be an adventure, y'all. um, in terms of the social part of transitioning, you know, I have really thought of this more as a personal project for a long time. And the other day I described myself to somebody as sort of reluctantly trans, because for a long time, and I've said this about other things, like I have really wanted to just focus on developing a career, figuring out a stable housing situation, getting a lot of things together in my life, and it was only when it became apparent to me that these sort of unresolved issues about um, my identity and how I felt about myself kept coming up that I decided to sort of go through with this. It started about 3 years ago when I became sober, and that's another story for another time. But when I stopped drinking, um, I had to sort of reevaluate my relationship with my sexuality and figure out, um, what that meant, what I wanted that to look like without alcohol use, and um, that's what set me down this path. I don't know if I talked about that last time or not. It's been a month, and my memory is not that great. So, um, still figuring all that out. This is sort of another part of that, and I know gender and sexuality are different, um, but believe it or not, sometimes they feel pretty related. So, especially when it comes to relating to other people. Weird aside there, but um, a question I've been getting a lot from various people, roommates, coworkers, friends, is do I have a name picked out? Am I going to be changing my name? And the answer is no, uh, not yet. So I probably will do that at some point, um, especially if I am becoming more feminine in appearance. Tom is not a particularly gender neutral name, and there are various reasons that choosing another name is appealing. What that is, I don't know. The only thing that has come to mind is a recurring role playing character name that I have used a lot over the years. I crossplayed a human female rogue in a great many um, tabletop role playing adventures, as well as uh, computer games and video games. So I've been sort of floating and sitting with that idea in my head for a while about whether that is something I would like to take on as a new name. But for now, I'm still just Tom. And the other question I've been getting is about pronouns. Should people start referring to me with she, her, or they, them? And I am not personally comfortable changing my pronouns until I feel like I am experiencing something that is actually different from the experience I have had um, in the body I have had since my birth. And I know that that is a sort of a weird feeling or a weird sentiment to express. I'm aware that not a lot of people feel that way, and a lot of people actually start um, or will experiment with changing their pronouns first. But um, for me, I'm still not really sure where this particular project is ending up. I don't have a clearly defined, like, this is myself that I'm presenting to the world worked out. And it may be that I don't actually transition all the way to a more feminine appearance. I may decide that something more androgynous or in the middle, a middle ground, works best for me and feels more natural once I get to that point. So we're still just winging it. That's sort of my default mode in life, and it's got me this far. So um, we'll see how much further it takes me. But overall, I am feeling good about this process and where I'm at. Um, you know, there are things that are uncomfortable about the process, but they are things that um, I think I would be feeling discomfort about anyway. And mostly it's thinking about, like, expectations for my life that are different on this path that I have chosen than what I have sort of always considered to be where my life is going. For example, if you've known me for a long time, you may know that I have resisted taking any kind of medicines, prescription medication, on a regular basis. Partly because I feel like it's not my natural self if I'm taking medicine, and that's true of antidepressants and mood stabilizers. And I know that that's like a weird and unhealthy way of thinking, but that has been my experience for a good 20 years, and I am now voluntarily choosing to seek out prescriptions to affect changes in my body. So that's sort of an unusual shift. And part of the reason I have always been reluctant to take prescription medication is that I have felt and desired for a long time to actually go traveling for an extended period of time, to live abroad, not just go vacationing, but really to just spend a year or so living overseas, and really immersing myself in other cultures. And uh, it's been a long time coming, but I've been talking about that for probably over 10 years now, and I have not done that. So, acknowledging that that is something that appeals to me, but also is something that I am not pursuing actively, and that maybe I can make life choices not based on that, um, has been another shift in thinking about my life. And there was one other thing I was going to mention that was a shift for me. Um, I don't know if this was it, but I also have had conversations with people lately about um, having children, and 31, not in a relationship. Have always sort of liked the idea of having a family. Um, and a month ago, when I started this process, had discussions with my doctor about sperm banking and planning for the future, and started looking into that and just realized that's going to be a long, time-consuming process. That is something that would be expensive and is not something that I'm particularly invested in. So, sort of rethinking what sort of family or relationship life I would like to have, and starting to imagine possibilities of having a family, and raising children that are not biologically my own, um, has also been an interesting shift in sort of long term thinking about the remaining decades of my life. So I feel like this is long and rambling again. Part of why I've put off doing these for so long is I keep being like, I'm going to write an outline of things that I want to say, and I'm going to craft a theme and then give a presentation about that theme in a video. And it's really uncomfortable thinking about a lot of this stuff. It's really been passive for me for a long time, and having to sit down and articulate in front of a camera in real time my feelings about these things seems to be the only way I can get myself to actually engage with these ideas in a more comprehensive way. So, thank you for listening to this again and being a part of this process. I hope it is interesting, maybe even entertaining. I don't know, but if you got this far, thanks again. I love you all, and I hope you have a happy New Year's Eve and a safe one. And I have to go spread some Christmas cheer for 5 more days, and then we'll see what 2020 holds. Good night, y'all. Love you.